Ragnar and Timmy. Hello and welcome, my name's Tabby, I'm an OG Winx Club fan and today I'm going to be discussing the live action Netflix remake, Fate the Winx Saga. This also marks the official start of a new playlist. I watch Netflix originals so you don't have to. I'm excited to make new content for it in the coming weeks and months, so be sure to check it out. So, Winx Club. I grew up watching the original animated series and even went so far as to re-watch a couple of the first episodes in preparation for this. Fate came out last Friday and I watched it all then and there, full binge, no shame. For those who are unfamiliar with the show, Winx follows a group of fairies who essentially attend a magical boarding school called Alfea. The protagonist, Bloom, is a fire fairy who grew up on Earth not knowing what she was, that magical creatures exist in the first place, or that there are different magical realms. Each fairy's magic is tied to a specific element, be it water, fire, nature, light, etc. There's a greater range in elemental abilities than in, say, The Last Airbender, which only has the 4. The antagonists of the show tend to be witches or power-hungry evil beings. The Winx gals team up to take them down, often with the help of the Red Fountain Boys, though in the live action they're known as specialists and also attend Alfea. There are quite a few differences between the animation and the live action, and I think the best way for me to highlight those is to talk through the trailer for Fate and discuss it within the context of the whole live action series and wider franchise. First things first, I think the only core cast member in terms of the original Winx Club group to be cast well is Bloom. I think Abigail Cowan actually nails both the look and the kind of stubbornness that that character has. The rest of them I'm really not so sure on, but I'll talk about that. They make it look like there's a lot of action and magic used, like in terms of the CG. You basically get everything that's in the 6-episode season in the trailer. Watch where you go, Right, so Bloom and Sky, OG Winx Club fans will know that they're like OTP. The way that they dealt with them in the live action is weird and uncomfortable. She like drugs him at some point. If you dance with Actually, with the shot of the school there, let's talk about the colour palette and the set design. It doesn't work for me. If they had stuck to the original Winx Club aesthetic, it's like poppy colours, it's like glittery, okay? It's kind of like manga anime style, and it really works as an aesthetic. Everyone has their own kind of colour palette woven into what element they have, and they make some attempt at doing that here, but it's muted. Like, Alfea is meant to be this sort of like pastel pink and blue. I mean, boarding school, yes, but almost like a palace, and in this, I know it's shot on location in Ireland, but it's like this kind of discount castle place, and I get that they wanted to make it more gritty and stuff, but I don't think gritty necessarily needs to equal drab. Okay, let's pause. Let's talk about these guys. Okay, Musa's meant to have musical abilities and she's meant to be Asian. Stella's meant to be like full of joy and like the sparky character. No, they tried to make her more of an angsty character with issues with controlling her magic, issues with her mum, and I understand that to a point, but we've lost the character. This isn't the Stella I remember. It's not Stella. It's just it isn't. Bloom is again probably the most true to Winx Club, but again our red jacket, red boots, red dress thing. She's a fire fairy. Let's dress her in red. No. Aisha, she's only introduced in the 2nd season of Winx Club. Again, like, she barely has any characterization in the live action. She's barely there. Give her characterization beyond, I'm a bit stuck up, I like water, you should listen to me. She's a really cool, fun character in the animation. Let's have a bit more of that, please. And then we've got Terra. Almost less said about that character, the better. They've whitewashed Musa and Flora, and they try and get away with it with Terra Flora because they've changed her name. She says she's got a cousin called Flora, so it's obviously not the same character. But why? Why have you got rid of the Asian representation and the Latina representation? It's not difficult. Let's move on. Imagine if Winx Club, dark, they'd done like this whole adult thing, but it's like cyberpunk. If they'd done like a cyberpunk Winx Club, that would be awesome. Okay, let's talk about Beatrix. The Trix witches, the 3 of them that are in the animation, they're not in this. But you have got Beatrix who sort of takes their place.
Do you know why the barrier exists?
He's in Downton Abbey. I love him.
I'm not like the rest of you. I didn't grow up here.
Actually, that is one change I did quite like, is that they made her a changeling. That works. That checks out. Like, her mum is so awful in this. Like, her mum is literally like heinous. She's like, why won't you go outside? Why won't you socialise? You're such a freak. Leave her alone. Anyway. Just give them some wings. Ah! The remake's intention is clearly to appeal to adults who grew up with the animated series, as well as to attract a new audience familiar with shows such as Riverdale and Sabrina. I've already discussed how it differs from the original show, but now I want to talk about it as a standalone. If I erase the existence of the original from my mind and look at it as its own entity, and honestly folks, it's still bad. It's fat-phobic, homophobic, and the whitewashing of certain characters is enough for me to call it problematic, if not straight up racist. The characterisation of individuals is nothing short of bizarre. One exists to be a little bit but not completely gay. No, seriously. Another's entire personality is I'm a dick and do a lot of weed. Another character has been introduced as a larger girl, but instead of allowing her to exist as a perfectly normal example of a human being to contribute to body positivity and representation, the show essentially points a finger at her and says, look at her, she's fat, she's so insecure about her weight, she has so many issues. Why do that? Why? Let's not even talk about the script, or specifically the dialogue written by someone who has clearly never spoken to a young person in their entire life, including when they themselves were young. A genuine line of dialogue in the show: gingers, they're all nuts, but good shags. There are other horrific examples that don't even bear repeating. This is 2021. Why do I feel as though Fate the Winx Saga has regressed us as a species? As my brother eloquently put it, I feel like a worse person for having watched this. And to quote my dad, why are you watching this instead of Call My Agent? Watch Call My Agent. Why aren't you watching Call My Agent? I get it. They wanted to make a show where characters could have sex and vape and have aggro relationships with their parents and eat weed brownies and thump each other and drug each other and post nasty gossip on their Insta stories and burn their best friend's eyes out for staring at their boyfriend for too long and use big words such as mansplain in completely uncalled for situations and engage in proto-feminist microaggressions. And did I mention vape? Because the show certainly does. I think there's space for an edgy young adult fantasy show, The Boys at Boarding School, if you will, far away from the source material, dark but political and informed and allegorical and funny and smart. If Terra used her nature powers to build a pot empire, that would be entirely different. If a fire fairy was actually a little bit of a pyromaniac. If nepotism and classism were actually explored and critiqued. If they dealt with issues of genocide in a way that didn't condone it. At this point you're hoping I'm joking, but no, the show really does do that. This is all sounding overwhelmingly negative, so before I finish I do want to talk about the few aspects I did like. I thought Bloom was well cast, Abigail Cowan. I like that it's providing a platform for a lot of unknown young actors to break into the industry, and I appreciate them taking the risks they did and changing and adultifying it, even if I don't think those changes worked. It's probably a small mercy that there are only 6 episodes at this point, though there's not a doubt in my mind that it'll get a second season. I blame the idiots like me who binged the entire thing on day dot. Would I recommend Fate? Honestly, in good conscience, no I wouldn't. Will I be watching the second season when it comes out? Yes, but with a bottle of wine and little to no self-respect. And that's all from me. If you enjoyed today's video, drop a like down below, let me know your thoughts on Fate in the comments, and if you want more reviews, reactions, Netflix original discussions and more, be sure to subscribe. Until next time.